something of his cemetery, that's a bad omen.
This was working well with the house.
Yeah, that was working when she left the library too. So if you can't hear me, let me know. I'll talk as loud as I can, which is pretty loud. Welcome. I'm Dr. Scott Pendleton. I'm the president of Harrison County Historical Society. This is our 18th annual cemetery tour. The cemeteries are getting smaller. It's getting a little harder to find stories. We had this scheduled for last week, and I texted Sandy and said, you know, I'm getting my knee done on September 30th. I'm not sure about the cemetery tour. I never heard anything back, and then I saw it was on the schedule for the 15th, so she gave me a whole week to get better. So the answer is we're still doing cemetery tours. So here we are at Bethel Church. Bethel Church goes back to 1811. The original church was right there, right that square. It was a log structure. Like all the early churches, the pews were logs split in half and with legs put on them, and that's where you sat. There was none of this comfort stuff. You know, part of being in worship was you're focusing on God, not comfort. And these old Methodists were very much like that. We're going to talk about one of them today. And you know, you've heard me say, if you've been here before, and so this picture here was taken from that corner looking straight up. You can see the outhouses were right here. And if you look at this church, which was built, I think, in 1906, that front vestibule has restrooms in it because that church originally had outhouses. So when they wanted restrooms, they just built on the front of it, because all these old country churches had outhouses. So at any rate, it's an old congregation, and from 1818. These smaller ones, I think we got some decent stories today. We'll see. These, I've told you before, Methodists are really boring. You know, to get a good cemetery tour, you need a good Presbyterian cemetery, because they were a little bit more raucous. So, okay, we're going to start with, I finally get to talk about veterinarians.
Oh no.
Yeah. Sorry about your luck, buddy. Yeah, I know, that's okay. I can take it, Thorman. I'm a big man. This is Dr. William Kent. So, our first veterinarian that we document is a guy named John Smith. He immigrated in 1819. He came from Ireland, and he was listed as a horse doctor and school teacher. So there were veterinary schools in Europe at that time, but he would not have gone to one. So he would be like Dr. Kent. Dr. Kent in the 1850 census is a farmer. In the 1860 census, he's a farrier. In his 1863 Civil War registration, he's a horse doctor. And then he's listed as a horse doctor in 1870. So how does one become a horse doctor? The answer is by community acclamation. He learned more, he got better at it, and someday people would start to call him. He'd be doing farriering work, and he would work on something else while he was there, and then he would work on something else, so he ultimately became a very well-respected local veterinarian. There's a lot of articles in the paper where Dr. Kent says, you know, if you're going to treat, they called it foot scurvy. We call it foot rot. And his treatment was copper sulfate, which is still our treatment. So, but he was right on that one. But you can see there was very primitive medicine at the time. Dr. Kent had a son, Samuel Kent. In 1870, we had Dr. Pittis in Deersville, Dr. Kent. in this area. By 1890, we had Dr. Samuel Kent in Cadiz. Now, that Dr. Kent, he was a hybrid. He learned from his father, but he also went to the American Veterinary School in New York City. It was a 2-year program. After he was already called doctor in Harrison County. So he became a doctor, and then he went and studied. Then he came back. And he was also very well respected. Licensure occurred in 1894. It was the first year veterinarians have a license. And the paper is real funny because it says, we obviously care more about animals because a bill to license physicians did not pass the same year. So we licensed veterinarians 4 years before we licensed physicians, which I think is really kind of funny. So this Dr. Kent, and there was a guy in Moorfield by the name of Dr. Cope. Dr. Cope did what they call reading. So he worked with the doctor and he would read. The doctor would give him, you get this textbook and you read. And that doctor would teach him, for instance, they would have to know all these medicinal plants. They'd have to be able to go out and make their own poultices and all that sort of stuff. Well, the guy he read from was actually a physician. So he was trained by a physician and became a veterinarian. And when licensure occurred in 1894, he grandfathered in. Because Ohio State started about 1876 producing veterinarians, 78, somewhere in there. So he grandfathered in, Samuel Kent grandfathered in. Dr. Samuel Kent, this Dr. Kent died in the 1870s. Samuel Kent died in 1926. He was 72 years old and he was working on a draft horse. And the draft horse fell on him. And he died about a month later. He never got better. So we got power. We might have some. So then that gets you up to the guy ahead of me was Dr. Alfred Dunlap. Dr. Dunlap went to Kansas City. His tuition was $11. That's room and board and tuition. Wow. Room, board, and tuition was $11. He graduated in 1905. They initiated testing in 1908, and he bitterly complained that it was biased towards Ohio State graduates. And it may have been, who knows, but he did ultimately pass his test. He practiced until 1942. He had a horse by the name of Jip, and that horse lived to be 30